head, slowing down and taking no time. I gotta keep it rolling. Those in the windshield wipers snapping out the tempo, playing perfect rhythm with the song on the radio. I gotta keep it rolling.
Hey everybody, how you doing today? Kind of a early week random live, and I was super interested to do this because I know that Sergio and Chris discussed this, and when I did my research on it, I learned quite a lot of things that I didn't know about this app. So today I have Adam Warner, who is the head of the U.S. operations for InDrive, previously InDriver. Adam, welcome.
Wonderful to be here, Steve. Thank you so much for having me. Look forward to our conversation for sure.
Yeah. So let's see. InDrive, founded in 2013. I caught one discrepancy that was, I'm very transparent. So I just want to be very clear because it's not a big deal, but it just was odd. So on your website, it says 700 cities, 45 countries, but on the app stores, it says 600 cities and 48 countries. So less cities, but more countries on the app store. I don't know why.
It definitely seems like something we need to fix for sure. 700 cities plus for sure. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. And then you've got it, right? Like I said, you've got it as 45 countries, but both the app stores have it as 48.
Fun. Nothing but opportunities for me to take away. Like I'm here for it. Love it. We'll definitely pass that feedback on. Get that.
Well, I mean,
correct.
and that's the thing. I mean, maybe it has changed since you guys wrote the 40. I mean, I find it interesting when, because those who know that like Lyft is in one country. I mean, we have Didi and some other ones, but for those that don't know, InDrive is the second most downloaded rideshare app in the world. So worldwide, it goes over Didi, it goes over some of these other ones that are trying to operate even here in the United States, and some of the ones down in South and Central America and whatnot that are pretty big. But you guys are a big rideshare company, and yet fairly new to the U.S. market.
Completely new. Yeah, we're the largest rideshare company that you've never heard of, for sure.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So can you walk us through the timeline of like, where it launched, what country, what city, what took you so long to get to the US? What are the plans for rolling out into more cities?
Yeah, really extensive background and history. So the company was founded in a small town in Siberia. And so essentially the short version of the story was the taxi company in that small city decided to band together, and they kind of created their own surge pricing before surge pricing became a thing. They said, hey, everybody's out drinking, they're going to need rides, it's really cold outside. So if we raise our rates, everybody is forced to pay it. So that's what they did. And it really outraged the community. So InDrive basically started from like a Facebook group saying, hey, I'm going from point A to point B. Is there anybody willing to sit there and take me on that journey? And that's really kind of how it started. And then they fast forward 10 plus years later, they've kind of taken that same type of model that they did in that small Siberian town and started to apply it into a lot of emerging markets. So that's really where InDrive started, like not these developed countries like the United States, not like in Europe, et cetera. Where can we go where we can kind of challenge injustice and kind of create a more fair and equitable system for the people that are kind of doing this work every single day, day in and day out. And so that's kind of the heart and the root of our founder, really what he tried to strive for every single day. So that's a little bit how it started. Uber is still definitely one of the big players in the game, but we've definitely kind of transitioned to a little bit different model to really try to help improve the ride sharing community in general. Now, why did it take so long to get to the United States? Well, the United States is a very interesting market, and obviously, it's just one of those circumstances where there's a lot of regulations, there's a lot of rules in place, and so kind of navigating through those in a fair and equitable way in order to create a right value proposition for both the passengers and the drivers is a little bit difficult, as you probably know, as you've talked about on your show several times over in some of the clips that I've been able to watch and see. And I'm sure that we'll get into that and love to engage that conversation if you want to. But we're now big enough and strong enough to be able to try to bring this model to the United States. And look, there's a lot of things for me to continue to work on, a lot of opportunities. I need to be really cognizant of some of the mistakes that have happened in the past in the ride sharing game, so that we can try to be better. I'm definitely going to make mistakes, but I'm here to try to be open-minded, listen, take feedback, and try to apply that every single day.
So the cities you are in, I know you're in Miami.
In Miami, yeah.
What else? Where else is a footprint right now?
So we launched in Miami in July of 23. So we got that kicked off, really kind of trying to hone in some of the opportunities that exist in working in this marketplace, working out all of the kinks. So we definitely had an expansion plan, and we wanted to get to a couple more cities by the end of the year, but we definitely paused that because we were getting feedback. And I do think that it's vitally important to get it right the first time as best we can. I understand that, all of your community that's watching, that's currently driving in South Florida, I'm definitely appreciative and thankful for all of the hard work that they do. But yeah, we're testing, we're trying to learn what works, what doesn't work. And so going through that process is really kind of helping us lean into what our future expansion plans in the United States looks like in 24. And that's definitely what we're looking to accomplish this year. I'm hard at work.
I'm just curious, and I know to some people this might sound ridiculous, but I would guess in the current situation that California is not even on your radar. I'm being honest. I mean, I know it's a huge market, but it's such a mess.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult to just be in this business just in general. And trying to learn and bob and weave and understand the different legislations that come out and the different points of view. Everybody has what they think is the right answer to kind of regulate this industry. And so trying to kind of understand all of those little nuances that every state has, because every state has something similar to what California is, might not be to, the scale of the population and the rideshare market in general there. But it's definitely, California is interesting. I will tell you.
I know it's a market you guys would want to be in.
Absolutely.
For volume, but just the headaches of being there seem.
Well, when you're dealing with rideshare at that kind of scale, you want to make sure that everything is buttoned up and you're ready to go. And so I think more so me wanting that is my ultimate desire, and kind of build momentum to go into a place like California after already having some successful expansion launches in several other states. I feel is really kind of the right strategy for us kind of going forward.
So let's walk through how this works, because I'm all about transparency. In fact, I work on, most of the apps I work these days are what I call the off-brand apps. Not the main ones. I've worked all the main ones, but I'm sick of that crap. And so I do a lot of Curry. I do a lot of other things that are 100% transparent up front. I make more money. There's a little more work involved, but I'd rather everything be above the board. I'm an independent contractor before the gig economy even began. I've been doing production work since the late 90s. So I understand all of that. And one thing I always hated about the gig economy, the app-based, was the fact that everybody's trying to hide whatever they can.
Yeah.
And and then these programs that, like, I hate, it always has to be DoorDash that I pick on the most, because they have these tier levels and these acceptance rates that matter and all these things that you're not supposed to be able to use as tools against independent contractors. And not only have they never bowed down with those, they've made them worse. Top Dasher, Diamond, Elite, it's like, come on, guys. And then acceptance rating got to be over 50, got to be over 70, got to be like that. That's not how it works. If an offer looks crappy, that's why there's not supposed to be an acceptance rating. If you want to make everybody employees, that's a different conversation. But
completely.
But for a transparent independent contractor, there should be no AR. So I'm assuming that, because I understand how yours works, but I want you to tell us, like, from the driver's end, how does this work?
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Like, transparency is hypercritical, I think, in terms of just gaining the trust of the community, both passengers and drivers. But how does it work for a driver? So I'm currently in Atlanta, Georgia right now. And so if I wanted to drive for InDrive, obviously the same simple rules. We go through background checks. We go through all of the very similar aspects that other gig economy apps go through. And once you
use Checker, I imagine.
Like, they're obviously big, but we're continuing to look at the people who are expanding in that space to make it a little bit more streamlined. Like, that's definitely an operational challenge that I think that we all are faced with. But after you get through all of that fun stuff, you're ready to drive. You turn on your app, and that's when the rides begin. And so what it will look like for the driver is that anybody that's looking for a ride in your general vicinity. And so we kind of set up some geo fences around wherever your current location is, obviously for ETA purposes. And so let's say that somebody's about a mile away from me, maybe two people. You will see in your queue that two people are wanting a ride, and here's where they're going. This one is going to the airport. This one's going to Midtown Atlanta. This one is willing to pay $30 to do that ride. This one is willing to pay $20. So you see it. And so you get to choose the passenger, number one, but then you can also choose and negotiate with the passenger and said, hey, you know what? It's rush hour traffic. I know that it's going to take me a little bit longer to execute this airport ride. So I'm definitely willing to do it for $35. And so,
but the negotiations are okay.
The negotiations are okay. Absolutely.
Okay.
And so you can come back and say, I'm willing to do it for 35. You're setting the marketplace as a driver. I want all the drivers to be able to value their time, effort, and labor, because that's what is happening in this whole ride sharing economy. So I want to give that freedom of choice to the driver in any way that I possibly can. So I want you to see how much it is. We're transparent on our fees. We're transparent in what you're going to take home. And you ultimately get to set the price on what you're willing to do that particular ride for.
Are your fees static or dynamic like Uber's? I mean, do you have like an entry level processing fee, or just a static one across the board? Do you have is it 10% you're taking? Is it, because we know how Uber works and it's not okay.
Yeah. We can definitely get in from a transparency standpoint. Like, currently in the United States, and I'm working really hard to keep it this way. I don't want it to be dynamic. I want you to know immediately what it's going to be, regardless if you take the $30 trip or if you take the $20 trip, if you take the $10 trip. So those fees they're broken up into two. They're broken up into our commission, which is 9.99%, so 10%. And then the other 20% goes to payment processing fees, commercial insurance, all of the other fees. So that 30% is taken right from the, that top line. That's it. It isn't, what was kind of announced, earlier this week. We're not taking it off and then taking our cut. So it's all transparent. It's 30%. That's what it is right now. That's the hopes and goals and dreams that I'm working hard to attain.
Okay. So I see that I have a question here from already before, moving forward. And this one this baffles me because I understand as an independent contractor that it is my job to handle my business. It is my job to know what I'm doing, to be insured properly, to handle my business how I want. But I also know that it's up to me to use any tools I want. However, Uber and Lyft won't let me use any tools I want. So they limit my toolbox to what they say is okay and only through the app. So I can't use external third-party apps that help me. I can't do those type of things that independent. You're not supposed to be interfered with by the contracting company at all to be truly an independent contractor. So this has always been a confusion of mine because I know that legally they don't have to say anything. I was having a discussion about this recently with liquor delivery. I told everybody you need to check in your state what the law is because they don't have to tell you. They just assume you're an independent contractor. If you want to deliver liquor, you better look into it and know what you're doing. And therefore, most people are just delivering it without having tip certification or whatever you might need to be delivering alcohol. And all it would take is one instance for your life to be ruined. Completely. So I guess I question, when Uber's like, hey, you got insurance, right? Cool. Upload it. They make you upload it. Mm-hmm. And from that, they can tell 90+% of the drivers don't have the correct insurance.
Yeah,
most drivers don't care. Like I remember back in the day when I started in 2015, yes. I remember that everybody was confused and you didn't want to go to the insurance company. I get it back then because all they had was this one box, one size fits all kind of thing you had to carry. And it was like your insurance could jump from 200 to 1,000 a month. So to have that full commercial insurance, but now they've kind of come up with these gig economy insurance things that are definitely way more fair. But Uber and Lyft aren't checking that you have that you're properly insured. So how do you compare to Uber and Lyft on how you insure a ride?
So, look, this is, I will tell you and be transparent as well. This is the single biggest opportunity that exists in this whole ride sharing game. Like it boils down to insurance and being able to kind of understand and navigate this. So I can speak to Florida. Every state has certain rules and regulations on what type of commercial insurance that we have to carry and cover anybody that operates on our platform. So when you turn on the app and you start accepting those rides, you are covered by our lined commercial insurance that is within the legal boundary conditions of the place that we're able to operate in. So I understand kind of the beginning part. Most drivers do not have the correct level of commercial insurance to sit there and really cover their independent contractor work. Like that exists for us as well. On the back end, you are covered because it is a requirement. Like we can't operate. We don't get to play. We don't get to expand. We don't get to do anything if we don't follow and fit into those rules. So it is definitely a challenge in terms of trying to understand this from an operation standpoint, but and I understand how confusing it can be for many drivers trying to navigate what is what in this category. And I think to answer the question that popped up, it works exactly like Uber and Lyft because it has to. We have to. We don't have any other choice.
Right. So that I had somebody asking about in all phases, there's the phase 0, 1, 2, 3. Yep. So you're talking about when you have the passenger in the car, you've got it covered.
Absolutely. So that's P3. You know, so P1, you have the app on, you're looking for work. P2, you're en route to pick up. And then P3, you're in ride. So yes, those periods are covered by our insurance. P0, we're considering you're just driving your own car, and your own automotive insurance and policies apply in those particular cases.
Sure. And that's why I tell a lot of people, I'm like, I'm not saying go around the laws at all, but I tell them, definitely don't worry as much if you're doing like food delivery and stuff, because that's more of something on you.
Yeah.
You definitely should look into it. I mean, I'm just saying, but there's a lot of things like with Curry, for example, like if I do anything with Curry, I'm fully covered by them while I'm working under their umbrella. If I pick up an order, it steps outside of my insurance. It doesn't even involve my insurance.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's in my mind how it should be. So drivers are setting their rates. Drivers can negotiate their rates. Riders are putting in their rates. I remember when LA did this for Uber, and they tried it at the airport for like 2 weeks, and they were like, no way, this is way too crazy and too much of a headache. People are undercutting each other, and that's not something you feel like you face.
Interesting. I did think that was going to be kind of opportunistic, but currently we're not seeing that as a major opportunity. So it's unique. Do I expect and potentially you're going to see some of those challenges? For sure. Just something uniquely as we continue to build up momentum that we haven't seen just yet.
So in the other countries you're in, do you find that it's way easier to operate? I ask this because I've done a lot of world travel for production, and I always used to just assume that everything would be harder everywhere else. But I've learned in many countries it's much easier.
Yeah, we're in so many countries that it's unique. But of the countries that kind of come to mind, there are difficulties. There's rules and regulations that we have to follow there as well. But in general, it is much easier to kind of operate in some of those circumstances, for sure.
So, and then I saw this comment here. So I'm thinking the fee thing sounds scary. I guess I'm wondering too, like, are there concerns? Have there been complaints? Have there been any kind of heads up that people are making deals outside of the platform?
We haven't necessarily seen that. If you go back just a little bit and you kind of think about some of our operations, some of our other countries, most of those countries kind of operate on cash basis. So the transaction is happening without any kind of go-between. Now, we're obviously, for the connection of the passenger and driver, we're taking a commission that comes directly out of, that the driver is paying for essentially, and then they can negotiate from a cash basis. Now, the United States is very cashless, and so we don't operate in that circumstance. So we're not having to kind of deal in that as much. So I don't have a lot of stuff coming through customer support that kind of states that as being an opportunity. But remember, I'm only in one city, and as I continue to grow and bring our service to a city near you, you never say never. It could be a challenge that we could be talking about a year from now and how we're going to solve it.
But even if the driver and the rider can negotiate terms, they're doing it before they meet.
They're doing it before they meet.
So they're doing it through the app. Like, okay, here was your price. I don't want that. I want this. And everything gets locked into place before they even come get you.
Absolutely.
So therefore it probably is fairly well covered.
It's well covered. The passengers agreeing, like they know they're accepting it. They're using whatever form of credit card on file, or Apple Pay or Google Pay. And then that ride's kind of locked in. The driver knows exactly what the passenger has already paid. Like it's all right there for you. So it isn't one of those circumstances where you are going to charge 35 and the passenger doesn't know it. Like they're already fully aware of what that ride's going to cost.
Right. Yeah. So do you have any kind of scale? Because I know that these Uber and Lyft are very good at hiding what drivers earn, but if in the Miami market, Do you have any kind of scale as to how InDrive drivers are doing compared to when they use the other platforms?
Yes. The answer unequivocally is that, so it's a twofold problem, right? It's a supply and demand opportunity. That's this whole business. You got to have the right drivers on the road at the right time with the right passengers that want to use the service. So there's always that balance. And that's the reason why surge pricing kind of came into play, to kind of incentivize drivers to kind of get on the road, to increase supply because demand is high. So it's a twofold problem. So those drivers who do rides on our platform in the South Florida area do make more money per mile per minute than they do on Uber and Lyft. Period.
Right.
They do.
I mean, I would imagine. So like I actually lived in Miami for a couple of years when I was working production, when I was working as a salary position, and like, okay, the airport to Miami Beach or to Fontainebleau Hotel or something, like,
Yeah.
those Uber drivers, and if they drive Lyft, they know what that pays. They know,
Yep.
oh, that's about a $19 non-surge ride. I hate these. These suck. I got to take the causeway. I got to do this. I got to do that. And they know. So my guess is that no matter what, they're not allowing it to go under the Uber price that they know.
From a driver point of view?
Yeah, if they're on InDrive, they're not going to charge 19 because they grind their teeth about that on the other platforms.
It's unique. I have found all kinds of different independent contractors who are working on our platform, kind of setting their own scale of what the value of those rides are. So it's kind of unique. And I will also say that from a passenger standpoint, I really promote and I talk about freedom of choice a lot. You'll probably hear me say it multiple times, because as somebody that, I worked at Lyft previously, I came here. On those other platforms, you're a driver, you don't know who you're getting connected with. There's just a ride in the queue and you get paired up with somebody, and like, that's the gig. And so for me, the most interesting passenger piece that we can provide is like, you have the freedom to choose. You have a driver that's 5 minutes away and one that's 3 minutes away. Like, what do you value more? Do you value this person's in a Chevy Traverse and they're 7 minutes away, or do you prefer this one's in a Camry and they're 5 minutes away? And so you get to sit there and choose. You get to choose your path, and it's the same. It's the same for the drivers as well. So in your example, drivers know if it's a pain or not. I laughed just a little bit because 2 weeks ago I was in Miami Airport. I was going to South Beach, and I think I put like $23 or $24 to do that trip, and I think the lowest one that came back was like 28, up to like 38. And so obviously I chose the one that kind of best suited me. I didn't go back and forth. I chose one of the driver's rates, and onward I went. And yes, I got stuck in the causeway and the traffic was bad. And, but hopefully it was value for the driver in that particular case, who basically set the marketplace for me.
So I see Tony asked here about, because he does a lot. He lives in my market in Denver, the Driven Dad, and he does a lot of Uber and Lyft. And he's talking here about the tier services and how Uber and Lyft took away their Select and Lux. Seems like a huge vacuum. How do you feel about that? Is it just not even relevant because they're setting their own price?
So we do have different models. Like, we have a normal, InDrive mode. We have a comfort mode. We do have a SUV mode, etc. So yes, we do have different tiered services. The minimum expectation for those tiered services are higher than your normal ride. So there's some challenges in trying to understand that value proposition and get that message out. But it is something that I do truly feel like we need to continue to improve and expand those different lines. So if you only want to be a Lux driver, I want to make sure that I have a home for you and provide you the proper value to do that work.
So when you went to knowing South Beach like I do, when you went to South Beach, I'm guessing you took an InDrive back to the airport?
I did, yeah.
How long did that take to get one? Like, do you find that they're like InDrive drivers all over, or are they kind of hovering at the airport?
No. I like our market penetration in Miami-Dade County is really good. I think it only took me less than a minute to start getting bids from drivers. And mind you, like my flight home, I was like 4:30, 5 a.m. So it was really early in the morning. And I think I had like 4 or 5 different bids come in from different drivers. And ultimately for me, I was like, who's the closest in that moment? And then I was able to kind of get a ride in less than 5 minutes and be on my way to the airport.
Is there any rating system? Is there any?
Yeah, the same type of rating system, 5 stars. You get to rate the passengers, vice versa. That rating is displayed for all passengers who are active and looking for a ride.
Mm-hmm. So from the rider's sake, if I go to Miami and I get on the app and I say I want to ride, am I then seeing all the drivers, or am I putting in what I'd like to pay first?
Yes, it definitely starts with the passenger. This is what I'm willing to pay, and then that goes.
Is there a guide for passengers who have no clue?
Absolutely, because that was a big debate. As we were kind of getting ready to launch, because the big choice is like, hey, there's freedom of choice. We're not setting the marketplace. We want this to be a true peer-to-peer experience, right? And so there was some debate back and forth, and I think we even beta tested not having that. But on the banner, as a passenger, you're opening it up. You will see kind of a recommended price. You don't have to sit there and follow it as a passenger, but what we are finding that the vast majority at least use that as their starting point to have that conversation. And so it's really kind of based on, like anything else, how far are you trying to go?
Sure.
What's the expected ETA? And that kind of builds in like a base. Like this is what in and around the average for that kind of time and distance. So there's a good starting point for you. So passengers do get to see that.
So if it says, let's just make it easy. If it said suggested $30 or whatever, you're going to the airport from South Beach and it says $30 and you put in 15, do all the drivers then see 15 and start coming back at you?
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So they'll go, I can't do it for that, but I can do it for this.
Yep, absolutely.
And then how does that work? So I'm seeing all these coming at me as the passenger?
As the passenger, yeah, it just kind of fills up. Like, I'll get 8 or 9 different drivers filling my queue up, basically, and it just kind of goes in order from who accepted or negotiating with me, and so you get to kind of see that. I know it sounds like it's this arduous, difficult process. It takes less than 30 seconds to go through this entire engagement, even looking at those drivers, because you kind of know what you're looking for, what you want. You're looking for a roomier car because that's what you desire. You're probably looking for that over anything else, or you get to kind of just choose your adventure almost.
Do the other drivers have any clue what other drivers are bidding?
They don't.
I mean, clearly they don't see it.
They don't see it.
Is there any kind of margin saying, hey, currently South Beach to the airport, people are taking them for this? Anything that kind of helps them a little bit to go, why am I not getting rides? Or
ultimately, we don't have that kind of visibility. Like, it's an interesting concept. As you're kind of saying it out loud, this is really me kind of engaging with it for the first time. there is something interesting there to play with. We don't currently have that. We have had drivers contact into support and saying, hey, help me out. Give me some tips or tricks here because, I'm doing X and I'm not getting Y. So it's kind of interesting that you bring it up. And it's interesting that those engagements are kind of popping up in my head. So there's something to play with there for sure. But right now that currently doesn't exist in the marketplace, but we do try to give advice, tips, and tricks to our drivers because obviously, like, we want all of them to be successful. They're doing this for a reason. So they're here, they're willing to operate and open up our platform. So we need to do our best to, try to make sure that they're taken care of.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, and I'm guessing almost every driver you have drives for Uber and Lyft too, pretty much.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
why wouldn't they?
Of course.
So because even though those are my favorite platforms, either if I started to prefer driving for InDrive, I would still have Uber and Lyft because I want to fill all my time, and even if I'll make I don't want to take this offer, but I haven't had one in a minute. It's better than nothing. So obviously you're multi-apping and stuff, but yeah, I mean, I like this. I just, I guess the fact that you're operating in so many countries, it's crazy to me because, like you were saying, like there's countries that are cash. That's insane to me.
Yep.
Because I would think that even through these apps in other countries, they could tie in accounts or whatever they want to do. But then now you've basically got like the old taxi days of people driving around with too much cash on them.
Right. Which, for many different reasons, it's definitely not something that I want to deal with here for sure. I think we have enough opportunities to play with for sure. But yeah, it's an interesting circumstance that's how we were kind of born and raised to get to this point.
So does where is there a level where deactivation happens? Like how would that work?
Yeah, it's such an interesting concept, and I think that's one of the things that we're trying to refine. What are some of the biggest concerns that the driving community have, right? Obviously, it's commission and take rate. That's clear number one, obvious, right? And then really down 2 or 3 is, what a lot of drivers feel is unfair driver deactivation.
Yeah.
One, like a passenger, the ride is completely fine, but the passenger makes an accusation, and next thing you know, you're blocked, and you're trying to navigate that system to go through it. So I understand that this is a very touchy topic and something that we're working really hard to kind of develop what we're calling a safety management system. And so in this system, it'll have kind of all of the circumstances, how the whole process works. And we're really trying to work on making that as professional, as empathetic, as transparent as possible. So it's not completely all the way refined. I'm not saying that I have a full product out yet, but it is something that I've been working on for probably two straight months to try to solve that particular problem, or at least give somebody the roadmap. If you are deactivated, here's your roadmap. This is the steps that you need to do to at least be heard, to try to understand. But
right,
we do.
You were prior with Lyft. Yeah. So I'm going to say, like, you are very familiar with wrongful deactivations. And I know there's a lot of right ones too. There's a lot of people who are deactivated for a reason who say they're not. Yeah. But at the same time, there's a lot of wrongful ones. And we all know you don't get a reason. You're just deactivated.
And that's partly an opportunity at scale. So as you kind of get bigger and bigger, if you don't have that part really figured out and honed in right from the beginning, becomes a very overwhelming problem, because it is much easier for an analyst who is seeing 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 deactivations come through their screen to start clicking buttons. And
sure.
That is not, that's not what you or anybody else want to hear. Like, so trust me when I say that. Like, I understand, but I'd rather like have a real conversation with you and, you know, openly have this conversation. So
yeah, I mean, there's like, I'm glad that you're all about transparency too, because I am. And to be honest, I mean, for the companies that aren't transparent, whenever they talk to people, they're not transparent either. They're just never transparent. They're just not transparent people. They literally practice non-transparency. They have teams that hide things. We know this. Gary Middleton here is, I don't know if you're familiar with Middleton Tech, but he has a couple apps that are like filtering apps. So like Maximo does Uber, Lyft, and it does, I think, Grubhub and Uber Eats as well.
oh, cool.
Where you can set, you know, I want to make this much per mile, or I want to make this much, you know, there's all kinds of parameters you can set. And so he's having users in Australia ask him when they'll be adding InDrive to Maximo.
That's awesome.
So
like,
you heard that, Gary. He said that's awesome. So there you go.
I love to like, look, I'm not in the business to not have everybody win and be successful. Like nobody wins if the driving community is being taken advantage of and kind of hurt or devalued. Like who's winning that? Even as a passenger, if you as my driver are not happy with, you know, the economy, the gig economy app that you're working off of, how likely are you to provide me a really good experience and like overall? So as a passenger, I want to make sure that the person that's actually providing me a product or service is being taken care of. So like if there's applications out there and you know, much smarter people than I out there trying to figure out how to make this community successful, like, shoot, I'm for it. Sign me up. I'm here.
Gary's been doing it almost 10 years. And what it does is when you have all of them on and you're multi-apping, it actually, when you pick one up, it turns all the other ones off. So you don't have that screwing around or going to different screens and turning everything off, and it turns them all off. And then when you're done with the ride, it turns them all back on.
I love that.
So
yeah, I'm definitely checking that out, like post this convo. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's middletontech.com. So yeah, you'd want to. I mean, he has other apps too. He has one specifically for DoorDash and stuff, but it's a way to not have to. Yeah. I mean, Gary just said it here himself. It's a safety tool. And I think I know Gary very well. That is how it started for him, because we all know that in food delivery, you get a minute to accept that order.
Right.
But in rideshare, you get like 5 seconds. You know, it's like you're in an intersection. They literally don't care about safety. We've been all around this. So, Gary'sApps.com. So
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing. I wrote that down. So,
because I'm guessing that what he would integrate is something so that way, if people aren't seeing any orders, they'll know they've set their threshold too high in Australia, or other drivers are taking it for much lesser. So it's a learning tool too. I mean, it's a way to say, I don't want anything less than $1 a mile, or I don't want anything that goes over 10 miles. You can set parameters on distance, all that kind of stuff.
I absolutely love that. I mean, that sounds like a great tool to sit there and maximize a driver's capabilities. So like, amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other apps hate it. You guys love it. I mean, like, that's a good thing right there. Because the other apps are like, listen, you can't use those tools. Why? I already said in the beginning, you know, you're an independent contractor. It's your toolbox.
It's your toolbox. I want you to be successful. Like, I want to be able to provide you a marketplace and opportunity that you're going to set. Like, I need you to set it. I don't have thousands of engineers, you know, in a back room programming algorithms all day long. So like, you know, any tool that's going to help you as an individual be successful, like, yes, I'm going to be supportive. I really will. Publicly, privately, like, I'm here for it.
Yeah. And that's good to hear, because you were talking about legislation earlier, and there's going to be a lot of it this year. I think that a lot of these companies are going to really find themselves in more lawsuits than they've ever seen in the past this year. Because there's a lot of stuff about acceptance rating and all these things that they're not supposed to be using, that they use to placate the drivers, and, you know, almost like a virtual threat. Your acceptance ratings are getting low. Well, acceptance rating doesn't matter. I can have it be at 1%. So, it shouldn't even be something that I see. So what are you talking about?
Good news. It is definitely not even a metric. It's nowhere in our world whatsoever. So
yeah, I can't see how that would be. And especially because you were talking about static pricing and how that's where you really want to go.
Yeah.
I think even if the drivers don't like it, the amounts or whatever, I don't understand why all these companies don't go to a static. I'm not saying it has to be like 10% or 5%.
Sure.
But why they don't just go to static? Because now it's taken a long time, but the riders are starting to pick up on this.
Yeah,
they're now having those conversations that for some reason we just didn't have for years with the drivers. Like, how much are you getting? Because I paid $150. I'm getting 25.
Yeah, I'll tell you that conversation is for sure happening with a lot of passengers and drivers. And then just independently talking to passengers, that's not me and not my own individual experience. I definitely see there is concern. I will tell you that there's a large contingent of people who are high active users of rideshare and the services that are provided by the driving community are empathetic to the fact that they want to make sure that drivers are paid fairly, and as I think about our own company mandate, and our CEO talks to me all the time about making sure that I'm looking at the social issues, I'm looking at the injustices that kind of exist in this space, and he challenges me like, what am I doing about it? Like, how can I make this better, more fair and equitable as we kind of continue to go through this experience together? So I'm definitely empathetic. I hear this feedback. I really am concerned about it for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing Edward asked here that, do you have a cap on drivers in the Miami market, or will you in other markets or other countries, or do you try and make it so that it can't be 10 times oversaturated and there's just really not a lot of work for people?
It's interesting when you think about, there's certain places in the United States that have different regulations on how many active drivers can be out there on the road. So in those circumstances, for sure, I'm going to have to engage that thought process, because operationally, that's what we'll have to do. Currently, like, I'm still the small fish in the big pond. So currently,
but you're not. You're the second most downloaded rideshare in the world.
We absolutely don't. Like, I love my company. We're doing some great stuff, but I'm the small fish here in the United States. I'm looking to continue to get a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger. So in current situation in Miami, I definitely don't have it capped, because that isn't a current circumstance. That's an opportunity yet. So ask me that question 6 months from now, I might have a completely different answer, honestly.
Okay. So there's people asking how long will it take you to get to DC? Can we sign up in the US? I tried to download the app, but it doesn't show USA. So what can people do in their markets? Like, I know that when Curry was starting up, when I started working with them 3 years ago, they were kind of just starting up, and they basically said, we're in NFL towns. That's how they threw it to me. Any city that has an NFL team, that's where we are. And now they're everywhere. So, but they did take people and put them on wait lists and not run their background check until they were in their market, just to know what demand what allotment of drivers they had, what size vehicles they had before they started picking up customers.
Yeah.
So what can people do that aren't in Miami?
Like, one of the things that we will start to do when we are kind of evaluating a marketplace, we start with a bunch of digital tests. So you'll start seeing different things pop up in your city. That's going to be targeted to people who are interested in rideshare, obviously. And so once you kind of get to that point, if you interact and engage with that, that definitely kind of helps you in that process. So there's multiple digital tests happening in multiples of our cities here in the United States. So be on the lookout. So definitely coming soon. Like
So
it's
how many
close.
how many drivers? I mean, maybe you don't
Yeah.
want to say the exact number. I get that, or maybe some idea. Like, how many drivers do you have in Miami?
Close to 20,000.
Okay. Okay. Wow. So you guys probably, I'm guessing you did a lot of promotion because you wouldn't be even known.
So one of the targeted reasons why we chose Miami very specifically, like, you know,
Because
I've
it's
said
global.
I've said it publicly. Yes, we're global. Miami is very culturally diverse. Many of the people actually know our brand. So there's instant brand recognition in the marketplace. So getting that kind of early adoption and get those early adopters into our platform was successful. Like I really only had it in my mind, like, okay, if we had like 2,000 or 3,000 drivers to start, like, you know, this is kind of in my head. And I think we started with well over 10, 11,000 to launch. So obviously exceeded my expectations. So I'm happy that we were able to do that. I'm thinking through, like, how do I do it in a market that has never heard of us and do that. So that might be a little bit of a challenge. And I'll have to be very smart about how we spend marketing dollars to engage with everybody. So stuff that I think about for sure, things that keep me up at night.
So Gary he's in Florida. I know that he's 2 hours from Miami. And so he's saying, because I actually know where he's going with this too. I know Gary very well. So I know he's trying to sign up so that he can go down and test it and try and see how it could work into Maximo. Mm-hmm. So if he's 2 hours north and it's showing that you can't sign up, what does he do? Or can he not because he's not in Miami-Dade?
Yeah, you know, it's kind of interesting. I need to sit there and look. My understanding is you should be able to download it, but it will show it's like, hey, we're not active in your city yet. So these are kind of some interesting, you know, pop-ups that are happening because we're currently not live in Atlanta. I opened it and tested it today for something else that we're trying to accomplish and do. So, you know, let me get back to you and then we can kind of communicate with the community and I'll get an answer for you.
So if somebody wants to go to Orlando, the InDrive driver can do that. They're going to have to use Uber or Lyft to get home. They
can. And that is ironically, it's a very popular, that's a popular ride destination, way more than I expected for sure. Cause that's a long ride.
Disney. Yeah. It's Disney though.
It's a long ride. So those couple $100 trips are worth it for some people for sure.
Yeah. So I'm guessing with you in Atlanta, that's hopefully a target city of yours. I'm just guessing. I don't know.
You know,
maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong.
Like ultimately it's so many different factors. And we just want to be smart and like grow effectively, efficiently, you know, like the good old days of rideshare at the very beginning, there were so many like incentives being thrown out to get as many people signed up as possible. And it kind of diluted, you know, how do we build this organically and sustainably over a long period of time? And so how can I sit there and do that and not make any of those same mistakes? Because we can all pay for passengers. We can all pay for drivers by giving some incentives. Do 100 rides, I'll give you, you know, $500. Like we can all do that. But in the end, the crushing pressure of, you know, actually making it to a viable business becomes overwhelming. And so I don't want that stress or that, you know, I'm already getting gray hairs. Like I don't want to like make it full gray just yet. Give me a couple years, please. But, you know, it's a challenge for sure. So I would say a variety of factors continue to go into our expansion plans. We want to kind of understand, have several team members in different states, different cities right now, talking to drivers, talking to passengers, kind of getting a lay of the land, understanding what the pain points are, and is there an area that we can positively impact the community, I think is very high on my list to be able to accomplish. Can I do that? InDrive.com. That is correct.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I thought, yeah. I mean, I only looked it up on the App Store, but I'm guessing that Gary already looked it up. And yes, that's right. So for those of you that want to know, it is InDrive.com. And I know a lot of you are going to be frustrated because you can't sign up for it. So, but at the same time, know that they've entered the U.S. They're here. I mean, they've been around since 2013. They haven't been here, but they're here now. So maybe, I mean, we've seen this with many companies. They start in one city, and then, I think one of the most recent that I remember was Metrobi. It's like a courier service that started up in Boston. Now they're like in 30, 40 cities.
Interesting.
So when it does pop, it pops, and maybe you'll be in a few more markets or whatever. I didn't know if there was a way for, like, if people download the app, if they instantly go onto a waiting list, and therefore you're seeing the amount of people wanting to use InDrive in each city. But from what I'm gathering from some of the comments, you can't. I would guess you can download the app, you guys, that are saying that you can't. But it's probably, like you said, it's probably just saying that it's not in your market yet.
Yeah. And like I said, I'll definitely get back to you for sure, because you should be able to download the app there for sure. So we'll take a look at it. Like that's
no, Gary, they're in a lot of countries. They're in a lot. In fact, I was, I know we're kind of wrapping up on time here a little bit, but I was noticing that when was this, January 23rd, that you guys were, and I have to, my feeling is that this happened because you're allowing people to be transparent and call their own numbers. But in the Philippines, they let you guys start, and that's the LTFRB, the Land Transportation Franchise and Regulatory Board. But then they suspended, after they allowed you, your operation permit. And I'm guessing it's because you don't operate on the corporate sketchy scale of Uber and Lyft, or not Lyft, but Uber and whoever else might be there.
Yeah. It, like, everybody has its challenges. We'll have our own city to city, and like Denver's a great city. There's definitely some different challenges in getting a driver onboarded in like Colorado than it is in Florida. So I would say that for the Philippines and some of our other locations, there's definitely conversations and, things that you have to do and navigate through in order to make it happen.
So now Gary's saying that it's because I said that they're in 45 countries and he only showed 4. He's saying, hey, I didn't make the app. I'm just telling you what I see.
No problem. I appreciate your engagement and wanting to check us out, Gary, for sure. Thank you.
I mean, Gary, you even yourself said you got, and I know Gary does have a lot of Australian users. You said that you got Australian users wanting to use it. So it's in Australia. And I just said it's in the Philippines. I know that they're in a pause there, but I feel like that's just kind of some political corruption, to be honest. That's just my feeling. I don't know. I could be completely wrong. But then I also see, like, where else was I looking? You guys are in Africa. You're in.
Yeah, my friend was just in Cairo this last week and used InDrive for all of his rides in Cairo, Egypt, which was really cool. Gave me lots of feedback. Thought it was fantastic.
Yeah. So I mean, so basically, you're on that scale of, I'm trying to think of the other one, like Ola, Didi, those are like competitors of yours.
Absolutely, they are. They are. Yes.
Yeah. So, and those operate much like Lyft and Uber. They're just straight, here it is, pay this. You don't need to know what the driver's being paid, whatever.
Right.
So I like this. I really want to see it build out. Of course I do. I want to see rideshare drivers have another option, because I also, you were with Lyft, and I mean, who knows, you probably have some things you can't say because
Sure,
you
of course.
signed some forms or something, but at the same time, I don't know how Lyft survives much longer. I just don't. Because like you were saying, like they're putting all their money into signing up other drivers. Why aren't you putting it into the drivers themselves?
Yeah, it's an interesting dichotomy. I mean, like I have a lot of friends and a lot of respect for the people there. There are a lot of good people at Lyft.
Sure.
I do understand the pressure of, you know, that performing and making sure that that bottom line is taken care of so that the shareholders are taken care of, and like the pressure. So I totally get it. I understand. There are some really smart and capable people there. So nothing bad to say. Like, you know, it's an industry. I want to be able to provide a third option. You know,
exactly.
I want
and it's a different option too. It's not just another.
completely different.
Right, exactly. That's my point. Like you're saying third option, but to me, it's not. It's a totally unique one because the other two are exactly the same.
Yeah, I want to be able to give the marketplace something different for both passengers and drivers, for sure. So that's definitely what we're working towards.
And then I guess one of the questions I didn't ask you that I probably should ask is there do you guys have like years or type of cars? Like what can somebody register?
Yeah, I have to sit there and look. We do have,
like in Miami, can you take a
guidelines.
1995 250,000 mile car and put that on InDrive?
No, you can't. Like there are
just be the low ball or the bottom feeder that's like, I'll take you anywhere for $1.
Yeah, there are some boundary conditions for sure. Absolutely, there are. Like it's important because you want to be able to build a product. We want to be able to build a product that a consumer will want and appreciate and be a part of. Because I really want those passengers and these individuals that you guys are taking around every single day. I want to make sure that they are like, you know, excited and want to use the app again and again and again, and hopefully continue to improve drivers' earnings as we go forward.
So you download the passenger app, not the courier app.
Yeah, we do have different lines of business in different countries. We're only doing rideshare currently in the United States, but we have different courier services, handyman services that are kind of built on like the same system.
Oh, yeah. I think he's saying that the passenger app is the driver app, though.
Oh, yes, it is one app. That is correct. So the passenger and driver app are embedded into one.
Okay. That's interesting too. Yeah, that's I would think that might be a logistical nightmare, but I guess not. You guys would have probably chose to not have it be a nightmare, but I don't know. This all sounds great to me, and I love any challenge to shake up the rideshare community because I don't think they play above the. I know I'm going to just say it because you probably can't, but they don't play above the boards. They don't play on any kind of fair boundaries with the drivers at all. And when you were talking about gamification, that really gets me going too. You know, because I just don't think those kind of incentives should exist, because when you get those, it's telling you, to me anyway, it tells me this probably isn't worth my time. If they have to gamify me to say, hey, take 10 rides and we'll give you, like, no, it shouldn't be that way. I should be able to make money on just doing the job. And
for me, that's one of my mandates that we're continuing to work off of. Like, how do we make this transparent? And how do I make, like, I don't need for us to be wildly profitable, like, but I do need a sustainable business for sure, so that I can continue to, operate in this world. So, but the long story of it is like, ultimately, how do I sit there and treat people fairly, transparently, making sure that you are in an opportunity to make and maximize your own individual income. Like, if I'm able to do that and turn a little bit of profit, like, I promise, like, things will be good and I'll be in California before you know it.
We'll come to Denver first, because California is just a big old mess. And I know there's a lot of people in here in big markets that would love to see really anything, but probably especially something like this where they're calling their own shots a little more, because this really doesn't exist on other. I can't think of another platform where this exists. I work some courier boards that are websites that aren't Curry, that aren't Freight, that aren't Dispatch, that aren't the apps, and they kind of work like that, like a bidding system. But there's no app that's letting you call the shots. And like we were talking about, everything's dynamic, and that really messes up the whole system.
Well, because it's unpredictable. Like it could change day to day. You could do the same trip 5 days in a row and have 5 completely different results. And so that can be confusing and frustrating.
Yeah. So it looks like Gary's already working on it.
Boom. He's on it. Yeah. Don't download the Courier app. Yeah. I love that. I love it. I'm glad to see that we have a new download of our application. So I appreciate it.
I'm glad to hear you guys have 20,000 potentially drivers in Miami. I didn't expect you to say that at all. I expected 5,000 tops.
And to be honest with you, I definitely was pretty unexpected as well. But I'm obviously very grateful for everybody in Miami that has signed up and has chosen to give us a shot. So I'm thankful.
All right. Well, is there any last words of wisdom from you before I wrap us up here, or anything that drivers can do or can I'm so used to telling people, look, if it's not in your market yet, download the app. It at least signals the company that you want to be on it in your city. But it sounds like they're not even able to do that. So I'm just not sure what advice to give people other than just hang tight and see what happens.
Yeah. Continue to be on the lookout. We'll definitely make it known. I look forward to being able to kind of talk about future expansion plans very shortly. And so hopefully we'll be able to kind of create some buzz and kind of get this thing going. So I look forward to being in many of y'all's cities in 2024.
All right, guys, you heard it here. So make sure that, just keep an eye out for them, and if you go down to Miami, try it out too. I mean, I know all of us rideshare drivers, if we do travel, we like to, if I go, I'll try it for sure. I'm going to use that over Uber and Lyft. I'll download the app and try it out.
I hope that sure. You do.
I'd like to see that work so I can come back and talk about it, but
yeah. I would absolutely love for you to come check it out. And I look forward to getting feedback from you, from your viewers, from the driving community. And we're going to continue to refine and make this a little bit better as we go along. So keep it coming for sure.
So Adam, thank you for your time. And everybody, thank you for watching, and all the listeners, thank you for listening to the audio podcast. And watch for InDrive in your market. You can, go check them out now. Go look at their website. Go see what they do, and go read a little more about them. I was earlier, and so it's very interesting. It's very different. But when they do come to your market, it's something you'll want to get on right away. As he just stated, there's already 20,000 drivers in Miami. So clearly, when it does get to your market, sign up right away. That's my advice, because I always say sign up for every app anyway. So
I need y'all. I need y'all's support as we continue to try to be a viable third option in this marketplace.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Adam. And we'll see you back here a couple times this week and next week for the podcast. So be safe, earn smart, and be good to each other, everybody. Peace.
She was just a baby. Ain't no way.